Our song selection, Trying to Get Ready.
Trying to get ready, trying to get ready, trying to get ready, yeah, ready to try on my longer wide road.
I'm trying to get
ready, trying to get ready, trying to get ready, yeah, ready to try on my longer wide road.
I do believe.
Ready to try on my longer wide road.
My soul, King Yahshua, shall receive.
Ready to try on my longer wide road.
Jordan River is chilly and cold.
Ready to try on my longer wide road.
It chilled my body, but not my soul.
Ready to try on my longer wide road.
I'm trying to get
ready, trying to get ready, trying to get ready, yeah, ready to try on my longer wide road. Ready to try on my longer wide road. Ready to try on my longer wide road.
Ready to try on my long wide
The oracles of the UCI. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as dear children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather given of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth, therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Which is peace on Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Now, as we know, we are approaching unto, excuse me, our Passover, which includes several other things. We have Passover and then immediately following Feast of Unleavened Bread. So this is certain things that we have become accustomed to, but when we go out to the people out in the world, they believe that the things that we are keeping are some Old Testament things that are not necessary. And without having certain things read to you back to back, you really don't understand that a lot of the things that are done in Christendom are basically thefts of bits and pieces of Old Testament law. It would behoove you to go back, if you were not present at last week's Bible study on the fourth day. You should go back and listen to it, and we went over some of these things that are basically pushed year after year in Christianity, and we can go back in this book and find where they just took bits and pieces and basically put them together a day, so that even when they do the things of that day, they can tell you that it's not about the law, even though they stole the things they're set up from the law. That way they can participate in the things that they want to participate in and just call it a holiday, but then call the things that you do some kind of Old Testament thing that is not to be done. So what we have to do is get a clear understanding, because people actually believe that Easter and Passover are basically the same things. They believe that Passover is the Hebraic version and Easter is the Christian version, and that is not even remotely so. But without having certain things to explain this, it's going to be very difficult to get your point across. So this will definitely be that thing for us to be able to explain to others that there is a very, very large difference between Easter and Passover. So we're going to have to put these things side by side, because even when you look at the calendar, on man's calendar, I think Easter and Passover is only one day apart this year as far as their calendar and their Easter and their Passover. So it helps people believe that they are the same things. But we're going to have to read some things so that we can establish the difference between Yah's ways and the ways of man. We're going to begin today's sermon in Exodus chapter 12, and we're going to start that at verse 1.
Exodus chapter 12 and verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you.
So, and we know that in the beginning things began to grow. We know that absolutely nothing is growing in their January. Their January has no growth whatsoever. So it cannot be the beginning of the year. There is growth that's happening in the springtime. So we know that this is a time of new beginnings. All of the trees that were that had shed its living leaves, all of those things are starting to come back around, and their life cycle is starting over again at this same time. So the earth testifies for Yahweh. The earth does not testify for man. Man says the beginning is January 1st. It is dead, cold winter. Nothing is growing. All of the leaves have died and fallen off the trees. None of that testifies with man. Earth testifies to what Yahweh says, that this is the beginning. Go ahead.
Speak you unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your account for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it.
Right. So then now you're noticing that there are several things that are connected to Passover. You're automatically see the vision of this lamb. You then see this unleavened bread. These are things that are automatically connected to Passover, and we understand why they're there. What happens is when we involve ourselves in other things, they end up being connected with other symbols, and we don't ask, okay, so what is this symbol for? What is this for? Why is this here? We know why the lamb is there. So if somebody shows you a Passover card, let's say they send you a Passover card, it has a lamb, a picture of unleavened bread, you know what all of those things mean. Okay? So then we have to do that very same thing on the other side. When somebody sends us something and say, hey, here's an Easter card, and they're going to have a bunny on it, they're going to have some Easter eggs on it. Now, what we have to then do is say, all right, well, let's see what these things mean, because I know what my lamb is on that card for. I know what my unleavened bread is on that card for. Now let's explain why this other stuff is on this card as we deal with the other thing. Go ahead.
Exodus chapter 12 and verse 9. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. And that which remains of it until the morning you shall burn with fire. And thus shall you eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat it in haste. It is Yahweh's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I'll execute judgment. I am Yahweh. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I'll pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt.
So when we then look at another symbolic thing of the Passover, and we see this drawing of red blood, we then understand that it was the blood that protected them. When there was the sight of this blood of the lamb, then they were protected under that. So now when we see all of these things, we know what they're for. We have to do the same thing for all of the other things, because what happens is people are presenting images and symbols that are going by most of us, but they mean something. I don't care where you go. When you go into a building, they have symbols at that building. You have to start figuring out, why is that always here? Why is this? Because you'll start to see the same things. Why is this always at this door? Why is this always at this building? Those things have a purpose. They have a reason to be there. Go ahead.
And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. Even the first day you shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel.
Now, if people are not paying attention, especially after our people have gone through long pauses of not keeping these things, he is now on something else. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. He's talking about now the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, if you combine that with Passover, you know you're going to have a day of a problem, right? Because you're already supposed to eat the Passover with unleavened bread. So let's say that you didn't count it that as day one. Now he's moving on to the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which starts, and it is a holy day all by itself. But if you're not paying attention, and if we've gone a whole generation without keeping it, and this is what typically happens with us, we'll keep something for a while as long as there's a mean enough guy that we're afraid of. That's how we operate. Yahweh bring in a crazy looking dude, and he don't care nothing about what nobody feel, and everybody who do something wrong get dealt with. We follow Yahweh's word to the T. Soon as the crazy looking dude die, we back over here worshiping some mess. So then we have to refamiliarize ourselves with the word again, all over. And sometimes that don't go according to how it's supposed to go. Go ahead.
And in the first day there shall be an holy convocation, and in the 7th day there shall be an holy convocation.
So it starts with a Sabbath and it ends with the Sabbath. But we're talking about Feast of Unleavened Bread. We're not talking about Passover. Passover was 1 day. The next day starts the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and then that lasts for 7 days. But you can see, if you haven't kept this in several generations, and then you go back and start reading, you can understand how they start calling Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread the same thing. Go ahead.
No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you. And you shall observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For in the selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall you observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even, you shall eat unleavened bread, until the 21st day of the month at even.
Now, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even, you shall eat unleavened bread. When you deal with that, that is directly after the Passover. Go ahead.
7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses. For whosoever eats that which is leavened, even that soul should be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your habitations shall you eat unleavened bread.
Now, during the Passover, we're supposed to eat the unleavened bread, but this ordinance has not been pushed at Passover yet. That you must eat unleavened bread. You eat unleavened bread with the Passover, but the mandate that you can't eat anything else doesn't start until the next day. So understand the difference there. Go ahead.
7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses, for whosoever eats that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land.
And leaven is a representation of sin, because leaven causes something to rise, and going against Yahweh becomes equal to being puffed up against him, that we will not bow down, we will not accept direction. And those that are puffed up, that being puffed up, of course, turns into sin eventually, one way or another. Go ahead.
You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your habitations shall you eat unleavened bread. Then Moshe called for all the elders of Israel, and said unto them, Draw out, and take you a lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the 2 side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning.
Right. None of you shall go out of the door of his house until the morning. You are protected with the blood of the lamb, but you have to stay under the blood of the lamb. I don't think people understand the spiritual significance. See, some people will come in, they'll get their baptism, they'll do some stuff, and then they go off, and then they still think that they're protected under the blood of the lamb. No, you have to stay in the house. Not whatever particular house or particular congregation. You have to stay under the blood. And you have to be careful, because all places don't deal under the blood of Yahshua. So you can walk right out from up under your protection. You can do all of these things. Get the lamb, do everything accordingly, and then walk outside the house, and then you just Israel by yourself. And we have that vagabond spirit amongst Israel, where we want to do things on our own. We want to do it ourselves. And you end up being outside of the protection. The blood of the lamb is on the left and you way on the right. You ain't where your protection at. So it don't do you no good. Go ahead.
For Yahweh will pass through to smite the Egyptians. And when he sees the blood upon the lintel and on the 2 side posts, Yahweh will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come in onto your houses to smite you.
So the destroyer received instructions. Do not pass where you see the blood of the lamb. Now, anywhere else is fair game. If they walking outside, if they heard a noise, if Lucifer trick you, he makes some little noise and you go looking for it, the destroyer come, you fair game. Because the angel going to follow his instruction. He's not going to negotiate his instructions. His instructions is to kill everything that is not protected under the blood of the lamb. Ain't no conversation when you run into the destroyer. Well, I'm really under the blood, but what had happened was, see, I just had to fall off for a second because I had to take care of something. Right. Go ahead.
Verse 24. And you shall observe this thing for an ordinance to you and to your sons forever. And it shall come to pass, when you be come to the land which Yahweh will give you, according as he has promised, that you shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass, when your children shall say unto you, what mean you by this service?
Now, your children can only ask you about that if they see you doing it. Your children can't ask you about something they don't see you do. So how you think we had a whole generation that end up having to find the book of the law and try to figure out what it is we were supposed to be doing? Because they didn't see their folks doing it. They're supposed to see you doing this and then start asking questions. So why are we doing this again? So what's the meaning behind this? Go ahead.
That you shall say, it is the sacrifice of Yahweh's Passover,
Mm-hmm.
who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians, and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head and worshipped. And the children of Israel went away and did as Yahweh had commanded Moshe and Aaron, so did they.
Now, regardless as to what most believe, the Passover lamb, which represents the Messiah, was given to Israel before the law was given unto Israel. So to say that the Passover is some Old Testament unnecessary law is to profess no understanding at all of the Most High's plan of redemption and righteousness. The fact that the Passover lamb was given before the law was enjoined tells us that redemption was always bigger than the law. Let's go to Romans chapter 3. And I don't think people really consider that. They keep talking about, oh, this is Old Testament stuff. The law has not been given at all. And he's already giving them this thing about this Passover. He hasn't gotten to that point where he's giving them this organized part of his law. They're still in captivity. Y'all getting ready to leave. Do this, do this, do this, do this. They haven't gotten a law like that yet. So, but this thing is already being instituted for us. Romans chapter 3, and let's read verses 21 through 31.
But now the righteousness of Elohim without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets.
But now the righteousness of Elohim without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law. So some want to take the law and throw it away, not understanding that it was already in the law for these things to take place. He already had it set up before he gave the law. There was already something greater than this physical lamb. He already had that. This plan had to be set in motion from the moment Adam sinned. That's the part that we end up missing. So you have people that get so caught up on, you people must be dealing with the law. You people must be dealing with the law. At the moment that Adam went along with his wife, he took away his ability to intercede, to be the intercessor. There's now no intercessor. Had he not done what she did, he was available to be an intercessor. But when he did the same thing that she did, there's no intercessor. Now this whole plan has got to go forward. So when he's giving them the thing about the lamb, this is way above the law. This has to happen based on sin number one. Go ahead.
Even the righteousness of Elohim, which is by faith of Yahshua the Mashiach, unto all and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of Elohim, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in the Mashiach Yahshua, whom Elohim hath set forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood.
And you have to look up this word, propitiation, and you get atonement sacrifice. So what happens is, this is why a lot of so-called New Testament believers do not understand the true process of what's going on. Elohim have set him forth to be an atonement sacrifice through faith in his blood. The blood had to be shed of the lamb, and the children of Israel were protected under this blood. They don't understand that there was already set forth for there to be a man to stand in that stead. And Yahweh had this plan. This plan had to go through from the beginning. He wasn't trying to figure out the plan. He had to wait until a suitable body was found that could hold the spirit of his son. He wasn't trying to figure it out. He already knew what he had to do. Go ahead.
To declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are past through the forbearance of Elohim.
And I don't think people understand that little part, remission of sins that are past. What we end up getting taught on Sunday morning is that he just takes away our sins past, present, and future. So we think that we can keep on sinning and we just keep calling on his name, which ain't even his name that they taught us. So we had, some serious problems. You calling on the wrong name, and then you keep thinking that that's going to take care of all the sins, so we think that we can keep on sinning. Remission of sins that are past. Go ahead.
To declare, I say, at this time his righteousness, that he might be just, and the justifier of him which believes in Yahshua. Where is boasting then? It is excluded. By what law? Of works? No, but by the law of faith.
Now, what is the law of faith? There is the law of sin and death, and the law of sin and death is whenever there's sin, something has to die. That is the law of sin and death. The law of faith is the faith in the belief that the blood of Yahshua has taken place of that. And if you don't have the law of faith, then you should be sacrificing animals. But people will tell you that the law of faith takes care of everything. Now the law of faith done let them climb in their neighbor's window and steal the VCR. The law of faith done let them climb in the window to deal with somebody's wife. The law of faith done let them get 10 marriages and 12 divorces. The law of faith let them do whatever they want. No. See, now we're taking this thing out of context. See, it takes faith to believe in something that you can't do with your own hands. That's where we lose it at. See, we like to be in control of everything. See, we like to know where everything's going. We want to see where every fork and knife and spoon, we want to see where everything is. See, we control freaks. When it comes down to the law of faith, you ain't in control. Can you sit down on your control and let somebody else take care of your salvation if you do the rest of what you're supposed to do? See, some of us would rather just go back to, saying sacrifices. That way I know it's done because I saw it with my own eyes, you see. Right. Go ahead.
Verse 28. Therefore we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law.
The deeds of the law. And we know that those deeds of the law are those various things contained within the animal sacrifice. And we also understand that there are three facets of law. We have the dietary law, sacrificial law, and then moral law. And even if we look at man's setup here on earth, man has three phases of law. If you look at the American justice system, they have three phases of the law. And those three phases were set to so-called balance one another off. We know that don't work. But they have three phases of the law. So why are we so confused? And I mean, these are the so-called most educated people around, but somehow we're confused that there are three phases of biblical law. So as he's dealing with all of these things of sacrificial law, it has absolutely nothing to do with dietary law, and it has nothing to do with moral law. Those things are still in effect. Matter of fact, we go right back to the things that Yahshua said, and we can find all of the moral law, and he's kicking that moral law right off the top of his head like nothing. And he even goes in to make the moral law deeper than it was in the Old Testament. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 9. Hebrews chapter 9, and let's start that at verse 1.
Verse 1. Then verily the first covenant had also ordinances of divine service and a worldly sanctuary, where there was a tabernacle made, the first wherein was the candlestick and the table and the showbread, which is called the sanctuary. Mm-hmm. And after the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all.
Right. So then when we have these things set up, these candles, which some on the internet will not be able to see, but right to the left of me is the golden candlesticks and the incense that are burning. Go ahead.
which had the golden censer and the ark of the covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna, and Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of the covenant. And over it the cherubims of glory shadowing the mercy seat, of which we cannot now speak particularly.
Now, this right here, I love to point out, because we so nosy that we think we ought to know everything, and it says, which we cannot now speak particularly, which in layman's terms is none of your business. That's exactly what he's saying. But you know what somebody gonna do? They're gonna make a whole book talking about why we got to do this. Oh, look, we had the ark and then the angels came, and we gonna eat it up. They gonna sell a cajillion copies because people want to know stuff that they ain't got no business knowing. We cannot now speak particularly. This ain't none of your business. So stop trying to look into it. Stop trying to figure it out. You ain't going to figure it out. What you're going to do is you're going to become victim to somebody's puffed up imagination. And before you know it, you're going to be howling at the moon, trying to figure some mess out that he already said. That ain't none of your business. Leave that alone. You're going to get that in due time. But if I give you that now, you're going to be off into something else. Go ahead.
Now when these things were thus ordained, the priest went always into the first tabernacle, accomplishing the service of Elohim. But into the second went the high priest alone once every year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for the errors of the people. The Holy Ghost, this signifying that the way into the holiest of all was not yet made manifest, while as the first tabernacle was yet standing.
Once again, you only need to know basis when dealing with Yahweh. So they have the tabernacle, but he is not giving them all the information on how the ultimate part of this path goes. Can you still serve though you don't know everything? Here comes that thing of faith again. Go ahead.
Verse 9, which was a figure of the time then present, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect, as pertaining to the conscience, which stood only in meats and drinkings and divers washings and carnal ordinances imposed on them until the time of reformation. But the Mashiach, being come an high priest of good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building.
Right, and a lot of people miss this, that the Mashiach is a high priest. Yet we have people walking around telling us that the priesthood has been done away with. And us not understanding that this was a service given unto us. When they cancel your priesthood, they are trying to cancel your relationship with Yahweh and Yahshua. And we turn around and let it happen. Oh, the priesthood has been done away with. Imagine if you're at a job. It is your job to do whatever, whether it's park these cars or work on this, and then somebody just comes in and say, oh, that department has been done away with. Do you just turn around and walk away and go home? No, we start checking on that.
Excuse me, can I talk to the manager, please? Can I talk? No, I need to talk to. Well, I need to talk to the manager's manager. Well, then I need to talk to the manager's manager's manager. Well, then I need to talk to the manager's 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 manager.
Right. We don't just walk off. But yet you let somebody tell you that the priesthood is done away with, and you done. Ain't checked on nothing, just listening to them. And what they doing is killing your relationship with Yahweh, your Elohim, and you don't even know it. Before you know it, they gonna be priest of Yahweh. Wait a minute, didn't you tell me that it wasn't none? Yeah, well, I need to tell you that for you to walk off. And then I became priest when you left. Oh, okay. Go ahead, bro.
That's what I was going to say. Somebody tell you that, well, since I haven't been fired yet, I'm going to keep doing my job.
Right. Who gave you the authority to tell me such and such? Go ahead.
Verse 12. Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood, he entered in once in the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us.
Right. Coming in with the blood of goats and calves was one thing. Entering in with his own blood, the blood of a sinless man, is something altogether different. Go ahead.
For if the blood of bulls and of goats and the ashes of an heifer sprinkling the unclean sanctify to the purifying of the flesh.
Pause. Remember the ashes. Remember the things that we went over in Bible study about this so-called Ash Wednesday, beginning their whole part of Lent. See, there are things in here that if you don't pay attention, they just go in, take bits and pieces of your culture and feed it back to you as they will. And make you think it is some great holiness. This your stuff they stealing. I'm going to tell you how offended you should be. Let's say your house got broken in on and they stole your nice TV. And you go to the store and it's a guy saying, man, I got that nice television. Wait a minute. That's my television. Uh-oh. Did you just try to sell me my television that you stole out my house? Well, that's what them people doing to you. They take your culture, give it back to you, and then make you pay money to be involved in a piece of your culture. Because they didn't steal the whole thing. They just took bits and pieces that they liked, repackaged it, and sold it back to you. And made you say thank you. Go ahead, bro.
How much more shall the blood of the Mashiach, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to Elohim, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim. And for this cause, he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. For a testament is of force after men are dead. Otherwise, it is of no strength at all while the testator lives.
So this is something that why Yeshua understood that he had to die. Now, it was the manner of being in the hands of sinful men that caused him his real issue. There's death, and then there's that part of torture. That's something altogether different than death. He didn't just die. They drug it out. Okay? They made it take some time before they killed it. It was the torture aspect that caused him this pause. You know, Father, is there not any other way that we can do this? Must I do this? Oh no, that torture thing is something serious. This wasn't just death. Go ahead.
Whereupon neither the first testament was dedicated without blood. For when Moshe had spoken every precept to all the people according to the law, he took the blood of calves and of goats with water and scarlet wool and hyssop and sprinkled both the book and all the people, saying, this is the blood of the testament which Elohim hath enjoined unto you.
So this testament which Elohim has enjoined unto you came with blood the first time. So the second one had to come with blood as well. Go ahead.
Moreover, he sprinkled with blood both the tabernacle and all the vessels of the ministry. And almost all things are by the law purged with blood, and without shedding of blood is no remission. It was therefore necessary that the patterns of things in the heavens should be purified with these, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. For the Mashiach is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of Elohim for us.
Right, because the high priest went in to make an atonement for the sins of the children of Israel. So then Yeshua does that for us and then ultimately the whole world. But he has to then make that appearance in heaven and come with that atonement blood. Go ahead.
Nor yet that he should offer himself often, as the high priest enters into the holy place every year with blood of others. For then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world. But now once in the end of the world has he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. So Yahshua was once offered to bear the sins of many, and unto them that look for him shall he appear the second time without sin unto salvation.
You know, it's so interesting. Verse 27, as it is appointed unto men once to die. After this, the judgment. Sunday morning said you died and you went straight to heaven. You die, then there's judgment. That's not what we were taught. We were taught during the funeral. The person was already in heaven looking at us. They was at their own funeral, but looking at us from another perspective. That's what they told us. Where they get it from? Because it didn't come out this book. Because none of these people believe that. None of them. Read the account of Lazarus. She didn't say, you know, it says your brother shall rise again. I know he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Not once did she say, oh, he in heaven looking down there. Matter of fact, when you go back, tell him I said, hey. She said absolutely none of that. So where we get this from? But see, we quick to call other things out, but not deal with the things that we're supposed to deal with. Let's go to Luke chapter 22. And it's interesting as you look at, you know, some of the comments that people make on videos, and you can hear their misunderstanding in their comments. You know, it's like that thing when you go out on Sunday and you run into the people in the mall with the suit on, and then they look down at you. And poor folk, they don't know. They don't know. They not only think they right, but then they gonna look at you like you shout, you know, how in the world you gonna look at me and try to roll your eye like you, and they swear they doing the right thing.
So you didn't go to church this morning.
And you know, there's a part where you just feel sorry for them poor folk. Here it is, you keeping the wrong day and got the nerve to be rolling your eyes at somebody. But see, ignorance is bliss. See? Ignorant and just as happy. Just as happy and ignorant. Just skip to Malou. Just skip on. Just as ignorant and have no idea. It is quite interesting. Luke chapter 22, and let's read verses 1 through 6.
Now the feast of unleavened bread drew near, which is called the Passover.
Now, you understand, if you went back through Exodus 12 and you had walked away from this for several generations, we were reading, and at one point it just jumped in and said, 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. But he's dealing with another holy day at this point. You can understand how our people then would try to get back into this, and instead of dealing with it one day and then the next day starts another feast, they had already got off into something else. So now we're in the New Testament, and this is what they're calling the whole thing. Now, you don't know if they were thoroughly confused or if this is just something they had a tendency to do. Because we do things like that. You know, I remember before, you know, when they didn't have the term SUV, they would say things like, yeah, man, I got that new Lexus Jeep. It's not possible for you to have a Lexus and a Jeep. See, a Jeep is a brand. A Lexus is a brand. You can't have a Lexus Jeep. It's not possible. But because they had not gotten a phrase to deal with a sport utility vehicle, what we do, make up our own stuff. And we just start calling it by this name. We got songs, if you go back, it's songs talking about I got the Lexus Jeep. No, you don't. You ain't never had a Lexus Jeep. They don't make that. But until we get something together, we just put something together. And we figure it out later. And it's very possible that this was convenient for our people to do. But these things are not the same thing. Go ahead.
And the chief priests and scribes sought how they might kill him, for they feared the people. Then entered Satan into Yehudas, surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. And he went his way, and communed with the chief priests and captains, how he might betray him unto them. And they were glad, and coveted to give him money. And he promised, and sought opportunity to betray him unto them in the absence of the multitude.
Right. The same way the situation happened with Cain and Abel. He saw opportunity to betray. All right. So then now we see a couple of things. Now the Feast of Unleavened Bread drew near, which they say is called the Passover. They just kind of put all of those things together. Now let's go to the book of Acts chapter 12, because what we need to do is to see some things in how things get done. Go ahead, bro.
I just wanted to go to verse 7, how it shows the further confusion. It says, then came the day of unleavened bread, when the Passover must be killed.
Right. And you like, what book y'all reading? What book are y'all reading? But you have to understand, they also have heathens that are basically in control of their things. Herod was an Edomite. The Greeks and Romans are in military power. So they're basically ordering how some of the other stuff goes, because if they don't let Israel participate in their religious observance, then Israel riots. So they got to at least present us or give us a presentable face of keeping our observances unto Yahweh. So what they do, the same thing that the governments do today. Let's put in a puppet leadership. What do you think this whole fight about Venezuela is about? Some people want one dude to lead because they can control him and they can't control the other dude. That's the same problem we had with bin Laden and that other dude in Iraq. The whole thing is, let's put these guys in power, but as soon as we can't control them, it's time to go to war so we can put somebody else in that we can control. So Yahshua know about all of that. He had to live during that time. Well, he's got one thing going on, and then you have these puppet Israelites who are following what the ruling authority has set in place. So when we go to whining about our problems and stuff like that, we think, Yahshua don't understand. He had to live through this. He had to live through basically colonialization. The same very thing that we have had to deal with here because of slavery. He had to live it. Go ahead.
Acts chapter 12 and verse 1. Now about that time Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed Jacob, the brother of Johanan, with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Yehudis, he proceeded further to take Cephas also. Then were the days of unleavened bread.
Now you have to pay attention. Then were the days of unleavened bread. He saw that it pleased the people of Judea to do these things. So it lets you know about our split mindset, because you got some of us that are always going to be on the side of the ruling majority. That's how we operate. Whatever side we think winning, that's my side. That's the side we on. And you have this warring military might that has come in, and they put the people in place that they want. See, they go with the chief priest and say, hey, if you do what we want you to do, we'll leave you in power. If not, we're going to remove you. So some would rather have a problem with Yahweh than to have a problem with the ruling authority. Go ahead.
And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people.
Now, this is where they really get in and do some mess. Because, see, when people start seeing this, they say, oh, man, Easter's in the Bible. See, we got Easter. So this is why you have some Christians coming at you
saying, okay, well, y'all keep the old feast, the Passover. We keep the new one in
faith. We keep Easter. So now this little thing helps them believe that all of these things are the same. But we're going to get to a point where we're going to read what was there and then the definition of that word. Go ahead.
Cephas therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto Elohim for him. And when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night Cephas was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison.
Now, the reason why we're going to read this, because what I want you to see is the trickery of why they changed it to Easter at that point. You have to consider something. How many times do you think it talks about Passover? Why is it just in this instance that they changed the word to Easter? Look at what happens after that. So you got to play. Whenever you're trying to figure something out, you can't just deal with the one aspect. You have to go in and figure out, okay, why would you want to do it here? And they lied. They love nothing. The Christians love a good miracle. Now, and they want their name attached to all miracles. Now keep reading.
And behold, the angel of the Adonai came upon him, and a light shined in the prison. And he smote Cephas on the side, and raised him up, saying, arise up quickly. And his chains fell off from his hands.
I can see him shouting right now and just take off running down the aisle. See? Because, see, this happened during Easter if you listen to this lie. You understand? See? All they had to do was change one word. Now, all the other story is there. Just change the word to Easter, so now people believe that, hey, Easter got power. The chains fell off of them. And they freed from prison. Go ahead.
And the angel said unto him, gird yourself and bind on your sandals. And so he did. And he says unto him, cast your garment about you and follow me.
So now you talking about an angel come in, knocked off the chains, finna free a brother, doing all of this. And this is right during Easter. So they say. Go ahead.
And he went out and followed him, and knew not that it was true which was done by the angel, but thought he saw a vision. When they were past the first and the second ward, they came on to the iron gate that leads onto the city, which opened to them of his own accord.
So now the chains done fell off. He done went past 2 different gates. Now a gate opened on its own, and they're trying to attribute all that to Easter. Go ahead.
And they went out and passed on through one street, and forthwith the angel departed from him. And when Cephas was come to himself, he said, now I know of a surety that the Adonai has sent his angel, and has delivered me out of the hand of Herod, and from all the expectation of the people of the Yehudis.
Right. So now this is this great miracle that they are trying to attach to their heathen holiday. Go ahead.
And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Miriam, the mother of Johanan, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. And as Cephas knocked at the door of the gate, a damsel came to hearken, named Rhoda. And when she knew Cephas's voice, she opened not the gate for gladness, but ran in and told how Cephas stood before the gate. And they said unto her, You are mad. But she constantly affirmed that it was even so. Then said they, It is his angel. But Cephas continued knocking, and when they had opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. But he, beckoning unto them with the hand to hold their peace, declared unto them how the Adonai had brought him out of the prison. And he said, Go show these things unto Jacob and to the brethren. And he departed and went into another place.
Now, the other part of this that you have to notice that, first of all, not only did they put this and try to connect all of this with Easter, but they also make sure that you see Lord, Lord, Lord all of these times. So now you have two so-called Christian connotations that are connected with this miracle. You're going to see constantly the word Lord, which is a substitution that they put in here. And then you're going to see Easter, which is an all-out lie that they put in here. Go ahead.
Now as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers what was become of Cephas. And when Herod had sought for him and found him not, he examined the keepers and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down to Judea to Caesarea and there abode.
All right. So now our key to this was in verse 3. It says, Then were the days of unleavened bread. That is our cue that they have put some kind of something in there to give us a different connotation or a different picture of what was really going on. So, brother, read the definition there in the next graphic.
Pascha from G3957.
Now, so that is a Greek term. All right. So this is the part of when you have Pesach. This is Pascha, which is Greek. G3957. Go ahead.
Of Chaldea origin, from the Chaldeans, the Passover, the meal, the day, the festival, or the special sacrifices connected with it.
All right, now stop right there for a second. So originally what was there was Passover. Now, even in the definition in Strong's, look at what he tries to do right after. Keep reading.
Easter, Passover.
Now you see how now they're going to make Easter and Passover the same thing. But originally, what was there was Pascha. They're talking about Passover. But they want to tell that lie and connect everything of a magnificent happening has to be connected to Christianity. So now they feel even more power to deal with these so-called heathen days. Now, Passover is marked by several things. The unleavened bread, the blood of the lamb are all symbols of Passover, and we know what those symbols refer to. Easter is marked by several things as well. Let's examine the symbols that represent Easter and see if we can understand why they use those symbols. Go ahead to the next graphic, bro.
One of the most prominent symbols of Easter is the Easter egg hunt. The Easter egg hunt was specifically designed for children and is known as a completely harmless activity for children on Easter Day. But when this activity is examined, a deeply sinister meaning comes to light. As we recall, the Easter suits for boys and girls were almost always white in color. These white suits represent the act of fertility. The kids actually act this fertility act out by searching for eggs exactly as the seed of a man. Attempts to fertilize the egg of a female in the process of reproduction. So the underlying sinister meaning behind the Easter egg hunt is that we actually dress our kids up as instruments of fertility. The actual act of fertility involves many seeds from the male, but only one egg from the female. You can't just have one egg in an Easter egg hunt. So to fix this problem, many eggs are hidden, but there's one special egg that is hidden amongst all the others. Whichever kid finds this egg symbolically represents the actual seed that fertilizes the egg.
Right. And we got people looking down at us while they're participating in a fertility ritual. But they looking down at you. Go ahead.
The next symbol of Easter is the bunny rabbit. On the surface, it appears that the egg and the bunny have absolutely nothing to do with one another. But under careful examination, we find they both play a role in fertility. We know the purpose of the egg, but the bunny rabbit's role is a little more difficult to ascertain. When we examine the instincts of a bunny rabbit, we find that it has a constant desire to reproduce. In fact, in pet stores, you often only see one rabbit on display in a cage, because eventually, if more than one is present, they will attempt to procreate. For this reason, Hugh Hefner used a rabbit as his symbol for the Playboy enterprise. This is the only reason that the rabbit could possibly be used in the Easter celebration, as the rabbit does not lay eggs.
And I don't think as many so-called educated people with master's degrees and PhDs, and they got all kind of letters behind their name, and can't figure out that a bunny don't lay eggs. A bunny have other bunnies. A bunny don't lay eggs. See? But you got educated people walking around, but these are the symbols of Easter. An egg and a chocolate bunny. And it's hard to argue with that when you're a kid, because eggs are delicious. And so is chocolate. How can you argue with both of those things? But I remember in the beginning of this we read, it says, when you are keeping the Passover and your children ask you, what mean you these things? I remember being in the middle of an Easter egg hunt in my backyard and looked up at my mama. What the eggs and the bunny got to do with Jesus? And I watched the blank look come over her face. Now, I couldn't have been no more than 10, 11 years old. I mean, I didn't know nothing. I wouldn't, it was just automatically the same thing that the book said that your children were going to do. And after a pause, shut up, boy, and go find them eggs. It took me some years. I don't think she knew. She just accepted what was given to her. She didn't mean any harm by, putting on the Easter egg hunt. We were actually facilitating this act of fertility. I don't know nothing about that. I just know I like eggs and chocolate. And that's how a lot of people are getting sucked in. But these things have a seriously sinister meaning. And we're about to have the majority of our people participate in this. Go ahead.
If this does not completely tell the story, let's carefully examine the commercials that show up every Easter. The most obvious is the Reese's commercial that makes the chocolate bunny join with peanut butter.
Right. My chocolate and my peanut butter about to get together. Now, there's so many twisted ways one could take that. But they finna go ahead and show you the twisted way in which they meant it. Go ahead.
The scene is set on this commercial as the bunny and the peanut butter get closer to one another.
So in the commercial, they getting closer. They getting closer and closer. They coming together. Go ahead.
The famous love song of Marvin Gaye plays on.
Uh-huh.
The title of the song that's playing is also a dead giveaway.
Uh-huh.
The name of the song playing in the background of this commercial is Let's Get It On.
Let's Get It On is playing as my chocolate bunny gets closer to my peanut butter. That commercial playing right now. That commercial play every year. Every year, that commercial starts playing. And they play that same one over and over. And we think it's cute. They are telling you that Easter is a fertility ritual. And people got nerve to look at you funny. Go ahead, bro.
When we examine all of these things, we can clearly see that Easter is the worship of a fertility god. while Passover is a holy day of redemption that represents the Mashiach. Easter has nothing to do with the Mashiach whatsoever. But the worship of this fertility god is not a new thing among the children of Israel.
All right, let's go to 1 Kings chapter 11. First Kings chapter 11, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5.
Verse 1. But King Shlomo loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, You shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you. For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Shlomo cleaved unto these in love.
Right. Yahweh didn't say don't go to those people because they of another ethnicity. They are another race of people. No, he said exactly what the problem was going to be. You're going to be worshiping their gods if you deal with these women. I'm telling you now. Don't deal with them. Go ahead.
And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Shlomo was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with Yahweh his Elohim, as was the heart of Dawid his father.
Right. So when Yahweh tell you something, what happens with us is because it doesn't happen immediately, we think Yahweh was wrong. You're going to die if you do that. We do it on Monday, and we wake up on Tuesday. Yahweh lied. I'm still living. Right. Then slowly they just start feeling bad. No, he said, now I'm going to drag this out. But because it don't happen right away, we think we got away with it. Go ahead.
For Shlomo went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites.
Now, when we understand this Ashtoreth, and you'll see Ashtaroth, they just spell the different part of the name different. Let's read the definition of this Ashtoreth.
From H6253, Ashtoreth, probably for H6251. Ashtoreth, the Phoenician goddess of love.
I'm sorry. Phoenician goddess of love. Fertility. It is a fertility thing that is being celebrated on Easter. And it ain't nothing new. Our people have been doing this before. So what Lucifer did was just give us another name. Go ahead.
And increase, Ashtaroth.
All right, now let's go to Judges chapter 2. See, this ain't our first rodeo with this right here. Judges chapter 2, and let's read verses 10 through 23.
And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, which knew not Yahweh, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel.
And that's something that we cannot allow. We cannot allow an entire generation to come up that does not understand the works of Yahweh. Because this is the kind of stuff that ends up happening. They don't understand the works of Yahweh because something we didn't do. So now they have no pause in them whatsoever. Go ahead.
And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahweh and served Baalim. And they forsook Yahweh Elohim of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed after other gods, of the gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked Yahweh to anger. And they forsook Yahweh, and served Baal and Ashtaroth. And the anger of Yahweh was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of the spoilers that spoiled them. And he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about, so that they could not any longer stand before their enemies.
Okay, so pause. Our people start worshiping the Phoenician goddess of love and celebrating and participating in fertility worship, and he turned against us. Pause. the majority of our people are about to celebrate the Phoenician goddess of love and take part in a fertility ritual. And we can't figure out why we're constantly having issues. Right?
Whithersoever they went out, the hand of Yahweh was against them for evil, as Yahweh had said, and as Yahweh had sworn unto them, and they were greatly distressed. Nevertheless, Yahweh raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. And yet they would not hearken unto their judges, but they went a-whoring after other gods, and bowed themselves unto them. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in, obeying the commandments of Yahweh, but they did not so. And when Yahweh raised them up judges, then Yahweh was with the judge, and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judges.
Oh, you see there? When Yahweh put the power in a man, Yahweh was with the judge. He delivered them out of the hand of their enemies, and the people will walk because of the fear of the man, not the fear of Yahweh. We are some strange individuals. Go ahead.
For it repented Yahweh because of their groanings by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. And it came to pass, when the judge was dead, that they returned.
You see that? That implies that there's no fear of Yahweh. There's more fear of the man. See? Because as soon as the man was dead, they went right back to their mess. Hey, I watched it as long as my elder was alive. I watched people who I thought was so deep into the word, I thought they just woke up in the morning and hymns just came out of their mouth. Like they just woke up and floated. I mean, I thought they was into the word. That old man died, and it was like they had never heard any word. And this happened right before our eyes, and we're sitting there confused. What? We talking about people who we thought was so deep in the word. I had never seen them outside of it. And you could watch day by day as the old man got sicker. I could watch them get further and further from the word, the sicker he got. And it was confusing. It was confusing to watch. And as soon as he died, they were gone. And some of them have never looked back and have dealt with the word again. They gone. They heathens again. They could only be in the word as long as that man was living. So then you understand, oh, this wasn't about Yahweh. This was about that man. Go ahead.
And corrupted themselves more than their fathers, in following other gods to serve them, and to bow down unto them. They ceased not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way. And the anger of Yahweh was hot against Israel, and he said, because that this people have transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and have not hearkened unto my voice, I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Yahshua left when he died. That through them I may prove Israel whether they will keep the way of Yahweh to walk therein, as their fathers did keep it, or not.
Right. So then from this point, Yahweh makes a total different change of direction. At first, he wants to remove all of these things. Now he said, no. Leave it beside him. So Yahweh gonna make sure you got a staunch Christian next door. Let's see if they can talk you into coming on down and getting into a little fertility worship. He said, no. I'm not going to let you live amongst other people who believe what you believe. I'm going to make sure you got some of them around you because I want to see what you're going to do. I'm going to leave them there. I'm going to leave the most convincing ones, nice, smooth talkers. I mean, they talk and butter fall out their mouth. Right. We like them kind. Go ahead, bro.
Therefore Yahweh left those nations without driving them out hastily, neither delivered he them into the hand of Yahshua.
Right, but see, what you have to understand is those things will make you stronger. Yeah, you may fall a couple times to them smooth, buttery talkers. But each time you're going to get a little stronger. Each time you're going to get a little stronger. So when they come, you know what I'm saying, you're going to be able to see them. When they got the knife and the butter in the hand, you're going to look at butter talker. Going on about your business. Going on about your business. I done already failed to you once or twice. You can go on about your business. You going to take that smooth talk somewhere else. See? But see, sometimes it take a fall or two to make you strong enough to stop the butter talker at the door. See? I don't even want to hear none of them smooth words because I know they all lies. Go on. See? Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 8. See, it's a falling, whether you know it or not, is a part of growth. See, some of us believe that we'll do some things without falling. But let me tell you something. A fall, when you talk about Cephas saying, oh, I'll never deny you. Not me. All these others may deny you, but not me. I love you. I love you. I'll tell you from the top of my hair follicle to the bottom of my feet. I tell you, I love you. I love you. They say he was with him. Let's get him too. I tell you, I don't know the man. Start cussing. Sounds just like us, ain't it? Right. But what happened after that? It activated his conscience. And his work was on point. But it took that fall for him to do it. We like to believe that we can reach a higher ground without falling. But sometimes them falls are necessary for you to understand a few things about yourself. See, sometimes we think we've given it our best effort. Sometimes you don't know what your best effort is. You got to have a little motivation. See, running your fastest is one thing. And people say, this is the fastest I can do. And then they let go of that pit bull, and you reach an all new different speed when that pit bull get off that chain. I thought you told me yesterday was your fastest.
Well, I thought it was until that mongrel got out. I mean, that thing was slobbing and it was looking all possessed and everything. I didn't even know I can jump that high. I jumped over a truck and landed on another car. I've never done that before in my life.
People ran track and couldn't jump over the bar. When that pit bull got out, cat just float. You hear music when they run. Did that cat just jump over a whole car? Right. That pit bull was motivation. See, some of y'all just ain't had the right motivation for you to do your best work. That's when you find out what your best is. You don't find out your best under nice circumstances. That's not where your best comes out at. It comes out during the worst circumstances. That's when you figure out what your best is. Go ahead, bro.
Ezekiel chapter 8 and verse 1. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I sat in mine house, and the elders of Yehudah sat before me, that the hand of the Adonai Yah fell there upon me. Then I beheld, and lo, a likeness as the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins even downward, fire, and from his loins even upward, as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. And he put forth the form of an hand, and took me by a lock of mine head. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me in the visions of Elohim to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate that looks toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy. And, behold, the glory of Elohim of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. Then said he unto me, Son of man, lift up your eyes now the way toward the north. So I lifted up mine eyes the way toward the north, and behold, northward at the gate of the altar, this image of jealousy in the entry. He said furthermore unto me, Son of man, seeth you what they do, even the great abominations that the house of Israel commits here, that I should go far off from my sanctuary? But turn you yet again, and you shall see greater abominations.
Now, Yahweh from the beginning told us that he was a jealous Elohim. Okay, so then he says, let's look at these images of jealousy. Now, as we examine the things of Passover, we have certain images that automatically come forth. We see the lamb, we see the blood, we see the unleavened bread. Now, when we examine the things of Easter, we're going to see all of the things of fertility. We're going to see the egg, we're going to see the white suits, we're going to see the bunny. So we're going to see all of these things that represent fertility and procreation. These are images of jealousy. These things have absolutely no representation unto Yahweh. And all of those things are now, all you got to do is drive down the street and you're going to see them set up in front of churches. Images of jealousy. Go ahead.
And he brought me to the door of the court. And when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. Then said he unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall. And when I had digged in the wall, behold, a door. And he said unto me, Go in, and behold the wicked abominations that they do here. So I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping things, and abominable beast, and all the idols of the house of Israel, portrayed upon the wall round about.
Right, because now we've got this from other nations, and they have all of their images everywhere. So now we start to do all of those things. So we're going to serve Yahweh on the surface, but then we're going to present all of these other images so that we can worship the other gods at the same time. You go in a regular church, they got a stained glass windows with every amount of abomination you can think of. If you go in the Catholic church, you see them on the outside. You don't even get to get in before you see images everywhere. Go ahead.
And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel. And in the midst of them stood Yazaniah the son of Shaphan, with every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Then said he unto me, Son of man, have you seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagery?
Right. These are the ancients. These are elders. These are men who should very well know better. Go ahead.
For they say, Yahweh sees us not. Yahweh has forsaken the earth. He said also unto me, Turn you yet again, and you shall see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of Yahweh's house, which was toward the north. And, behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz.
Right. And when you get right down to it, in the Christian setup, you really ain't doing nothing until you cry. That's how when you have absolutely nothing else, it has to be an emotional display. So people just show up to go cry. Go ahead.
Then said he unto me, Have you seen this, O son of man? Turn you yet again, and you shall see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of Yahweh's house. And, behold, at the door of the temple of Yah, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of Yah, and their faces toward the east. And they worship the sun toward the east.
Now, the reason we turn toward the east is we're going toward the holy city. They're in it and put the temple to their back so that they can worship the sun. Now you got to pause. What happens on early Easter morning? Sunrise service. Ain't nothing new under the sun. I remember them old folks used to say that. Baby, that ain't nothing new out there. We used to do that. We used to call that the Watusi. That's the same thing, baby. We used to do that. They ain't had to tell these kids, say, ain't nothing new. Y'all worshiping the sun. That's all your sunrise service is. The same thing that they were doing here. Go ahead.
Then he said unto me, Have you seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Yehudah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. And, lo, they put the branch to their nose. Therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them.
So now, because of their sun worship and their fertility worship, they will pray unto me, but I ain't gonna hear them. And if you're unsure that it's sun worship, go back and look at the pictures of when the Pope came to Yankee Stadium and watch as they show him sitting in a burst of sun as he shows up with his staff, which is a staff with a sunburst on it. Sun images all around the place. And Yankee Stadium was completely packed to come and see this sun worshiper and this fertility god worshiper. But let us hear the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 5. First Corinthians chapter 5, and we're going to read verses 1 through 8.
It is reported commonly that there is fornication among you, and such fornication as is not so much as named among the Gentiles, that one should have his father's wife.
Right. Now, wait a minute. He's then talking about moral law. He's not just talking about this because he thinks it's something cool to do. So you have all of these people that tell you, oh, y'all following that Old Testament law. They don't understand that sacrificial law is the thing that was done away with right away. He's automatically talking about the moral law code. It is reported commonly that there is fornication among you. If the law is done away with, there is no fornication. You can jump in and out wherever you want to go. So then there must be law. And he's dealing with it. And now he's dealing with some things that was told to him. It is reported commonly. So I done heard this from several people. See, that y'all got some playboys in there. Some playboy bunnies in there. They just like to hunt. Right. So let's deal with it. It is not so much as named among the Gentiles that one should have his father's wife. So where y'all get this from? This ain't even according to y'all stuff. Go ahead.
And you are puffed up, and have not rather mourned.
Oh, you puffed up. Oh, you are leavened. See? You are not unleavened. You are leavened. You puffed up that we can't even just talk to you about it. Because you don't want to hear nobody talking to you about your fornication. Go ahead.
That he that has done this deed might be taken away from among you.
Right. And how you puffed up because you let them stay among you. He said you're supposed to deal with them and send them out the door. But see, we get upset if somebody get put out of church. Wait, they got put out of church? Yeah, he said put them out. You don't get to come in and act any old kind of way. You act like you ain't got no sense? Congratulations. Let the doorknob hit you with a good law split you. Ain't that what they used to say? Get on the other side of that door. It's the New Testament we read. So people think, oh man, that's that mean Old Testament. No. This is New Testament, and he says, cast them out. You don't get to act in no kind of way. That's part of our problem, that we will deal with the things of righteousness in an unrighteous manner and think Yahweh okay with it. Sometimes you got to put somebody out to save their life. Because they keep doing stuff and Yahweh end up doing something to them. Then the next time you see them, they're going to be carrying them in there. Go ahead.
You know, the interesting thing is you get to hear that somebody was put out. According to the way that Yahweh said it, no, you should have seen that they got put out.
Yeah.
Because you say that way you were here and fair.
Go ahead.
Verse 3. For I verily, as absent in body.
That's why you in some of this, you get to hear it because he's going from place to place. But them people that's there should be witnesses of seeing that person get put out. See? So then they then see it and say, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I don't know what that is, but I got it. I'm not going to do that right there because
Yeah, they threw them right out of that door.
Right. That's how you learn. How you think you learn when you're a kid? You don't know everything about right and wrong. When you was a child, there were certain things that let you know stuff was wrong. What? Huh? What? Who? You automatically stop whatever that is. Whatever you have in your hand, you just drop it. So you learn. That ain't a good sound right there. When you hear put that down. Stop whatever that is. And it still works to this day. You get fit. I just did it to a 40-year-old sister the other day, and she just stopped. She just stood in the middle of the hall. She didn't know whether to stop or go, or she didn't know nothing. Right? Still work to this day. It's universal. So you learn by certain situations and circumstances. Nobody explained to the child, hey, don't do this, blah, blah, blah. That's all they heard. And they knew not to do that. Okay. So sometimes other people going to have to see some things so they know, I ain't going to do that. I ain't saying I ain't going to do nothing, but I know I ain't going to do that. Go ahead.
It's funny you say that because what is it, Jeopardy? They use the same sound effect.
And you know that your answer was wrong, too. He don't have to tell you after you hear, He didn't have to say, by the way, that was wrong. No, you knew it by the sound. That sound just does not sound inviting. What?
Verse 3. For I verily, as absent in body, but present in spirit, have judged already, as though I were present, concerning him that has so done this deed. In the name of our Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach, when you are gathered together, and my spirit, with the power of the Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach, to deliver such an one unto Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that the spirit may be saved in the day of the Adonai Yahshua.
In the name of our Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach, when you are gathered together, and my spirit, with the power of our Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach, that you then deliver such a one to Satan. You put him on the outside of that door. Let Satan have his run with him. And maybe they'll learn to repent when they get out in that world. And Satan start having his way with them because all of their protection is gone. And he gonna have his way with them. And to some people, that'll be a couple of days. But some of us, we tough. We so tough, we'll just keep fighting. And it take longer for Satan to whoop up on us, for us to repent. And some won't come back at all. The next time you see them, it's going to be in pieces. It's going to be a piece of them over there, a piece of them over there. And that'll only be for their burial. All depending on how tough they think they are. Go ahead.
Your glorying is not good. Know you not that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? Purge out therefore the old leaven.
Right. Now, he is referring to our feast. And if you're confused, he's going to get even deeper and let you know that he's referring to our feast. Go ahead.
That you may be a new lump, as you are unleavened. For even the Mashiach, our Passover, is sacrificed for us.
So, the Mashiach is our Passover, and he was sacrificed for us. Why would I not celebrate a Passover? Why would I substitute a fertility god worship for my Passover? Go ahead.
Therefore, let us keep the feast.
Keep what feast? Let us keep the feast. But they got questions about you. Yet our instructions tell us to keep the feast. He didn't say keep the holiday. He didn't say go ahead and keep your fertility ritual. We keep feast days. Let us keep the feast. Where is the confusion? But you letting people question you. You letting people give you low self-esteem about what it is you doing. And you need to be questioning them about what they doing. Go ahead.
Not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth.
And he just dealt with 2 holy days, Passover and unleavened bread. But see, the hypocrisy that you find in Sunday church, they'll turn around and keep Pentecost. Why? Because they want the spiritual gift that came with it. Just like they inputted the name of Easter in here when there was a miracle, then they want to keep the one holy day that we can find in the New Testament where the miracle of speaking in tongues was given. Now they want to keep Pentecost, but here's the problem. Penta is a Greek term meaning 50. 50 from what? You got to count that from Feast of Unleavened Bread. So you can't just up and keep Pentecost. You had to keep Passover, unleavened bread, then count 50 days from that Sabbath after you offered your offering. You can't just jump in and keep Pentecost. But see, this is the thing. People want to keep bits and pieces of the Old Testament law as it suits them. The same way they want to jump in and tell you that you need to tithe, but you don't need to do anything else in the law. That's hypocrisy. And we have to be strong enough to call it out where it is. If it's done away with, do away with it. But this picking and choosing which thing we're going to deal with without understanding, dealing with the righteousness of the law and the letter of the law. That's what a separation is. The separation is between letter and righteousness. That's what you separate. Go ahead, bro.
No, I just wanted to say, you see how, the perversion of what they do with the Easter, they keep it in the first month that Yahweh gave us, and not keep it in their first month, which is in January.
Right.
So they keeping it so they know, you know that they know the days of Yahweh in the months.
Right. What the brother was saying is how they keep Easter in our first month and not in their first month. They have concocted Easter. They have an equation for Easter to make sure that it is in the same season that Passover is in. And none of their other holidays are calculated like that. That should be a questionable thing for all of them. And all of them sit there and wait, saying, oh, I wonder when Easter is going to be this year. But they know what day Christmas going to be on. They know all the other Christian holidays. But that one they have to wait until the calendar. It was specifically added up. They are waiting to the spring equinox and the new moon, and then they go to the first Sunday after that to put their Easter celebration on that day. And there are people who have celebrated Easter their entire lives, and none of them can tell you how they come up with the day. They just wait for somebody to tell them whatever the day is. And I hear people doing it all the time. What day is Easter on this year? Why don't you know? Do you even know how they come up with the day? This is how we follow stuff and don't even understand the stuff that we follow. So let it be known, when we see these images, we understand what these images mean. So when somebody come at you, and you ain't got to worry about coming at nobody, they're going to come at you. They're going to tell you that you're keeping some old Passover stuff that don't even matter. And that's when you go ahead and you go ahead and pull out your egg and fertility stuff. But wait for them. They're going to invite you to the party. But when you party down. Go all the way. Because that might be your only chance to talk to them. Because they're going to get away from you once you start showing them that they worship an adversary of the devil. People have a tendency to not to want to call you back after you tell them they worship the devil. But a lot of these people ain't never heard that before. They ain't never heard about the fertility God. They don't know that this is something that our people have had a problem with from the beginning. And you may be the only opportunity to hear that. But you can't deal with it if you're going to, shy away from it and not have the understanding of this thing. See, they'll put their stuff right on television in front of us, advertising Easter with a love song called Let's Get It On. And none of us thought that was strange. But that's all that we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.